Welcome to Mauritius and the African Regional Conference 2016. I'm James King, the banker's Africa and Middle East editor, and I'm joined today by Hugo Smit, who is Swift's head of Sub-Saharan Africa. Hugo, thank you for joining us today.
Good afternoon, James. Nice to be here.
Hugo, on Wednesday you'll be hosting a panel covering the development of African corporates and looking at some of the trends in that space today. What can we expect to hear from that session?
I think, James, what remains a challenge to us is if you look at the growth of Africa in general, we still see Africa's growth in terms of SWIFT outperforming global growth. But the one area where Africa is lagging behind is the corporate adoption or adoption by corporates of SWIFT. And to a large extent, we need to create awareness of the value proposition that SWIFT can offer. Also to create a podium, a discussion point of what can we improve, what are the hindrances. If globally we see great growth or big growth in the corporate space, why can we not replicate that across Africa? And as we see Africa going from economic growth, not SWIFT growth, we see local or domestic corporates becoming pan-African or pan-regional, and those corporates will need improved payments and banking systems, access to banking systems. So we really want to focus on the services that SWIFT already provides for corporate adoption, but also create awareness of the trends that we see that will happen and should happen over the next couple of years.
Now, also on the agenda for this year's ARC is issues around balance of payment reporting for commercial banks in Africa. What kind of challenge is this presenting to lenders today?
I think the reporting is, the balance of payment reporting is basically reporting mechanisms and methodologies to regulators and to central banks, and data collection is really based still on methods that were designed 10, 20 years ago where it relies on paper-based reporting forms, etc. SWIFT data provides a real-time view of cross-border payments as it happens on a daily basis. And we have a facility where we can replicate those payments to a centralized point, typically the central banks, which will give them not replacing what they have at the moment, but an additional, very accurate and very timely data source from which they can monitor balance of payments, forex demands. We believe it will play a role in identifying potential risks. We believe it will play a role in forecasting trends. Monetary policy can influence monetary policy. But I think that the main focus or the main advantage that we provide is we can provide this data to the central bank without interrupting or impacting any of the existing payment models. So this can be implemented with zero footprint at the commercial banks. It will alleviate some of the reporting, the manual reporting that they have to do. It will provide accurate information that's up to date on a daily basis to the central bank. We've seen over since last year, 8 banks in Africa, central banks in Africa, adopting this methodology. And we're just following up and looking at a trend. They're still collecting the data, and the full benefit of this I don't think has been appreciated yet. But from our side, we're very excited about what it could provide as value to the community. It could also be used to analyze trade corridors, the evolution of trade corridors. We had discussions last year about regional payments. By analyzing this data, central banks can accurately look at what's happening to their payments on a daily basis. So we believe there's so much potential in this. But again, we would like to revisit this in a year's time. We're getting sign up now. Lots of interest, but I think the real benefit will only become visible in a year's time.
Okay, so there is a real maturation of the reporting process occurring across the continent today.
Yeah, I think there's lots of interest in this as well. So we get lots of inquiries about this. And historically, accurate economic data across Africa has always been a challenge. We have a data source that's absolutely reliable. I really believe this is going to go a long way to alleviate some of the questions that's being asked.
Fantastic. Now, Hugo, just as a final point, I know in recent years SWIFT has been expanding across Africa. What kind of impact has that had on demand for your products and services?
Well, we still see SWIFT, first of all, just our traditional transactional or not transactional message-based service, growth in Africa is still exceeding the growth, global growth. But we also see we've had today today our first African Advisory Group meeting where we discussed areas or business domains where SWIFT play a role. And I was very excited about the results there. SWIFT, clearly there's a demand, pressure for financial crime compliance, the role that SWIFT can play in assisting banks in terms of countries in terms of avoiding de-risking, the role that banks have to play in order to ensure that they comply with international standards. We also assess today the role that the challenges that traditional correspondent banking model experience, and the role that SWIFT can play in alleviating that. So it's really been, I see a lot of growth, still a lot of potential, and I think it's an evolving landscape. Regulation is evolving. Correspondent banking certainly is evolving. It's being challenged by new entrants. It's being challenged by technology. It's being challenged by regulation. We've got a very important role to play there, and I think the community appreciates the role that we can play. I think SWIFT is particularly relevant in Africa to assist in that role, and I see tremendous growth for us going forward.
Fantastic. Well, Hugo, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to seeing you on Wednesday.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks, James.
Thank you.